is American fighter Chuck Norris.
This is WWE Hall of Famer, the hardcore legend Mick Foley.
NFL legend Steve Mariucci, and I don't start my day without coffee and cards.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy Ricky Williams, NFL legend and herbal connoisseur. And I don't ever start my day without coffee and cards.
Hosted by my buddies, the Bearded Grinch and Mike Blazin' Balliet.
Happy Friday! What up, Bearded Grinch?
What's going on? Mikey and a special guest in the house. I'm super pumped. We got Pax in the house.
I have my half beard, you have your full beard, and we have no beard. So we're the total trifecta.
What's going on, Paxton? How are you?
Dude, good.
Good.
Nice.
What are you doing here? What are we bringing you on the show for? What are you going to do tonight?
Open Pokemon box.
Pokemon Super Break Repack Edition. Chris, what do you know about Super Break? What's your experience with Super Break products?
Super Break is hit or miss. I know that I got in on the basketball one that you had there, and I was actually pretty pleased. Current players got the jaw out of it, so I can't complain with that. I've seen it a little bit all over the board. I've seen some that are better than others, but that's almost like any repack product. To be quite honest with you, Mike, I think I like our idea in putting out our own repack and showing them all how it's done.
Well, I will say this, that I've watched your repack. Actually, my wife and I played Rummy 500 and watched your entire repack last time.
I have a
And you want your own beard. He wants his own beard. And I said it kicks the crap out of Super Break because they kind of stick near the lower end of things. And maybe there's monsters in there that are worth like $1,000, but I haven't seen them yet.
Haven't seen one yet. There's others that are out there. Listen, what I've learned about repacks is there's a few ways to look at it. You've got repack product that is either going to be boom or bust, where you pay into it at a certain amount. 90% of the time, you're going to probably walk away with less than what you bought in for, and then there's a chance to hit a monster. Or you're going to have those where you're probably going to come back with maybe a little bit over your buy-in, but you're going to get a decent card and a good value for your money. So there's different ways to go about it, but I'm excited to see
how they do with their Pokemon products. What do you think? So this one was razzed off on Paxton's Pokemon page, and it's one buyback card. They do have other packs and stuff too in them. He's still getting used to seeing himself on YouTube. I know kids get excited that we get to say hi to him, so I can't imagine being 5 years old and seeing yourself on the computer screen. All right, are you ready to see what we got?
That's a leaf type. I know that one.
Who is it? Because it's in Japanese. If you want to see it right here, we got it looks like a Japanese Sun and Moon Gem Mint 10 out of 2018 PM. I don't know what PM is. We'll have to ask some of our Pokemon people.
I don't know.
They stand for like a certain set that they have.
For the novice Pokemon people, are like the Japanese ones more valuable than the American versions, or I don't know much about it.
I think that they're like certain ones are. Like we pulled one the other day. I let him open a box, and he opened a McDonald's one from a McDonald's. So like they must have gave him away a McDonald's Happy Meals or something. And he goes, "Dad, you speak Japanese. Read this." I'm like, "Yeah, you have really a lot of faith in your father, don't you?"
Yeah, that's funny. Josh Calkins, you are undercover. You got to change your settings on Facebook to be able to let us see it's you. I'm up on my phone so I can tell it's you, but change your settings so we can see you.
All right, so this actually goes out to Richard Ortiz, I believe. So congratulations, man. You got yourself a Japanese, Rowlett. Rowlett is the name of that one.
I knew that.
You knew that? You're just like my kids in school that know the answer after I give it.
No, I know Rowlett. I saw him in the movie.
All right. Well, tonight you and I will open Alakazam. You want to go upstairs and play hide and seek with Mom, and then we'll open Alakazam? All right. I love you.
See you, Pax.
See you, Chris.
I'm covering my mouth.
All right. Get up there before she starts without you. Thank you guys for humoring us on that and letting us have a good time. But yeah, to your point, Chris, I think that we got to get a repack going because we can provide much better value than a lot of these repack companies do, unfortunately. And I think right now it's harder for them. They have to still make their profit line and their profit margins, but cards are a lot more expensive than they used to be. They used to be able to buy these numbered cards, these parallels, these prisms at a really low cost, send them away to get graded, wait for them to come back, and they've already generated so much more revenue, and then repack them. But it doesn't happen anymore. If you don't get them out of your own packs, you're not making any money on them.
No doubt. And the way that it's going now is the time that it's taking to get things graded and to get turned back in. You can hit that monster player, send it off to get graded. 6 months later, by the time you get it back, they could be a dud, and you've just lost out on that opportunity to move it.
Well, and here's the thing, too. We are living in the hobby of cards in the most volatile market time ever. Look at Jalen Hurts, real quick, not to get off track and mess up our show, but Jalen Hurts Silvers to Josh Long in our group, one of our admins. He said this week, if I would have had this card last week, it was selling for $500 to $600. He had posted last night, it didn't even sell for $175. So it is an absolute time of highs and lows. What have you done for me? Not lately, but really literally just now. Like, what have you done for me? Because if not, it can drop, $300-$400 just like that.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's all over the board. Really crazy thing about it used to not be with football. Football had a little bit more longevity to it. You had a little bit more legs with the cards that you got. Even now, it's game to game. Player comes out, catches 2 touchdowns, for 150 yards. All of a sudden they shoot up. Next game they come out, drop 2 passes, they shoot back down. I'm used to it in basketball. There's volatility there and some of the other sports, but not like football, and football's catching up with them.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that when we talk about who to collect in the course of the playoffs, if there's anybody you can jump on. And I think guys are starting to look ahead a little bit more in that case. Even Baker Mayfield's cards are shooting up a little bit, even though Steelers are heavy favorites. If the Browns upset the Steelers, if that does happen, imagine what might happen with his cards.
Exactly.
That's how quick it could happen.
Well, listen, this is our Wild Card Weekend special show, and some of the things we're going to talk about cover just that. Who are those players this week that could have a good weekend, overnight success, their cards can all of a sudden start to shoot up, and who are those players that are a little bit more volatile and have the opportunity to go back down? One thing we want to start off with, though, and this is something that Mike and I want to start doing on a more regular basis, is just sort of like talking about those cards that are in the marketplace now that are on the move. Like, who are those cards that are sitting out there that have seen the greatest increase over the past week? And so we're going to start things off with that. And it's no surprise with the NBA in full swing, we're starting to see, a lot of those players, and we talk about the volatility where those players can start performing out of nowhere. And that's what we've seen this week. So there's top 5 cards that have moved this week. 4 out of the 5 are all NBA players. And surprisingly enough, 3 out of those 4 players that are in the NBA are all centers, not a position that you're typically using large value out of. So tell me if you've heard this name before, Mike. Number 5 on the list, he was a rookie in 2015. He's the center for the Houston Rockets. Would you be able to tell me who that is?
Hakeem Olajuwon. No.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. It's Christian Wood. Christian Wood is one of those rookies that came out. He's averaging 24 points a game, 11 rebounds. He's currently injured. He's got a sore left knee, so he's game to game. His card has tripled in value over the past 30 days, his rookie card. Part of the reason is he's not a big name. So when those cards were coming out, the prisms and things of that nature, he wasn't a part of those groups. So you can only find him in really select packages. So Donruss is what his rookie is. His 2015 Donruss card has tripled in the last 30 days. So start going out and buying your 2015 Christian Wood rookies.
It's a great point there, too, because the basketball market, like the basketball player pool, is so much smaller. It's almost like prospecting for baseball, what we used to do with baseball, which is really tapered off in a way. But the player pool for baseball is so huge because single A, double A, triple A, high school, these guys, there's so many names to know, and you can predict so many. But so many people got into the baseball market that the biggest names got sucked up. But with basketball, everyone goes after the big names. They're willing to pay up for Luka, Zion, LeBron, because there's still great growth opportunity there. But there are a lot of guys, like look what Trae Young did in growth over the last couple weeks. You could have bought him in such a low cost. And there's so many other guys like that. Basketball guys they only need 2 or 3 games to exponentially grow in value. So you just got to get ahead of it a little bit.
Yeah, and we're giving you the opportunity. If you want to go out and get your next center to start lining up, it's 2016 rookie cards for the Indiana Pacers. Domantas Sabonis Prism PSA 10. Over the past 30 days, his cards are up over 380% in value. Another center, another guy that's putting up good points, but his rookie was in 2016. It's kind of reminiscent if you look at Giannis. Giannis's rookie year was 2013, but it wasn't until the last 2 years that you started to see his value skyrocket. And that's what's interesting with basketball is these players have the opportunity to go from zero to hero really quickly.
Yeah, you wonder if it's like a trend. Like we saw that someone mentioned at the beginning, DK Metcalf saw a boom at the beginning of the season. Is this just a beginning of the season boom?
I think it's who's hot and who's not. They've played such a limited number of games. I mean, you saw last year what happened with Bol Bol. He came out and had, a handful of really good games, and his prices shot up, and then they came back down to reality pretty quickly. But that's just how volatile basketball is. Literally, you can have, 2 or 3 game stretch where you're playing really well, and the values are going to shoot up. So the question now remains, are these players going to continue to play at this level and be able to maintain the value? That's what we just don't know. Rounding off our centers, this is number 3 mover for this week, 2015 rookie card, Nikola Jokic, the Joker, the center for the Nuggets. His prices have doubled for his Prism PSA 10 that are out there. He's playing really well. The Nuggets are one of those teams that showed up in the bubble last year, surprised some people how far they went, and I think a lot of people are looking at them in the West to be one of those that can help push the Lakers. So look out for Nikola Jokic, the Joker cards. And then rounding out basketball at the number 2, this is no surprise if you've watched any basketball this year. This guy's come out on absolute fire. He plays for the Celtics. He goes by the name Jaylen Brown. I know when you hear Celtics, a lot of people think Jason Tatum was the number 1 guy there, and Jaylen Brown was going to play that secondary complementary role. It's quite the opposite. Jaylen Brown has come out and been that man. His 2016 Prism PSA 10 had shot up and is actually outpacing Tatum cards at this point.
Wow.
And it's because he's averaging 28 points a game, so doing really well, making a name for himself.
Yeah, what the most surprising thing about all this is these are the movers this week, and it's going into NFL playoffs.
Right.
I'm going to comment on that at the end of the segment, but go ahead with your last one.
Last one, we're going to take a departure from the major sports and move into the golf world. This is no surprise. If you've been anywhere on Facebook or eBay, you've seen these shoot up to a ridiculous level. The 2001 Upper Deck Tiger Woods PSA 10 cards selling anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 a piece right now. You could have gotten one for a few $100s. There's a lot of speculation as to why. He does have an HBO special that's coming out. We saw what happened with Michael Jordan cards when The Last Dance came out. But I would just say buyer beware on this. I think if you go to purchase one of these cards right now, you're too late. I think the time to have bought it was when it was on the rise, maybe $600. I think it's reached its peak, and I think this is going to be like kind of those Topps 2020 cards. You're going to start to see that market drop pretty steadily. This
is a perfect example of quick flip. Like if you got one, flip it because the market's there. How much can they go up? He has to play really well for an extended period of time or have a special or, win a big tournament for that to go up any more than it is right now.
I agree 100%. So those are our top 5 movers for the week. Like I said, some interesting. What's great about this segment and what I'm going to enjoy is some of the names you're going to hear aren't going to be those that you typically are used to hearing. It's not going to be the Jaws and the Zions and the Herberts and the Mahomes. You're going to hear some unique names and an opportunity. Maybe if you're on that investment side and want to be able to get into it a little bit lower, can do so with some of these players.
Do you know what the number 1 trending card in Sports Card Investor is right now? Now, not necessarily growing, but number 1 trending.
Trending right now?
It's football.
I mean, you would assume it would be either Mahomes or Herbert just because they're the two. I wouldn't
Josh
be surprised.
Allen, Don Russ base rookie card.
Really?
Yeah.
Base
I wonder if
rookie.
it's because it's cheap, because the graded 10 is like in the upwards of $400 and the raw is $60. So you think about it, people are probably buying those by the dozens. You can buy like 10 or 12. Pray you get 2 or 3 graded at 10 out of those. You're, even if you get 30% graded at 10, you cover your purchase just based on one of those. Yeah. So that is the number 1 trending purchase, not necessarily growth in value, but trending purchase.
Interesting. And see, Josh was just mentioning here, it is like if you're in this for the flip, it is like the stock market. You literally have to watch it on a day-by-day basis. You have to become that trader that sits in front of your computer and is seeing the highs and lows. And it's all about anticipation, is being able to just recognize who's got the potential and being right on the money. And if you're right, you look like a genius. I mean, you can turn into that Gary Vee who bought up one of the Giannis's and all of a sudden sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in cards, or it can work out really negatively in your favor. Like I think it's going to happen to Vegas Dave when he realizes Derek Carr is not the future in Las Vegas.
Well, and here's the thing. You have to be organized and you have to be patient. Like you have to be timely, not necessarily patient, because a lot of guys will be too patient on their cards. You could have sold Jalen Hurts, like I said, the silver for $600. Maybe that was the time to sell it. But then some guy said, hey, I didn't want to. Now buy Jalen Hurts. Don't try to flop them all for $175 now. The other thing is, too, is send them away for grading. They're out of your hand. If you really believe in the player long term, don't necessarily think you have to sell right away. But we can get into that more, but we've talked about it many times, is being organized is key. So when a guy like, what was Wood, the center for the Rockets, what's his name?
Yeah, Christian Wood.
If you're a basketball collector and you have Christian Wood, you can go right to your Rockets or your W or your center, whatever you have it organized by on your spreadsheet or in your box and say, hey, I'm going to get rid of these now.
Good point. Yep. Organization's key in this, whether you're doing it for the hobby or for the flip. Organization's what's going to keep you ahead. So that's our kind of market movers for this week. We're going to continue to do that each and every week that we broadcast, whether it be our live or our recorded stations. So look into that. And if you guys have any tips or suggestions that you think maybe that next guy to pop off, send us a message, let us know. And I'd like to kind of track those and see if anybody can hit on them. So let's kind of shift gears. I think what we want to go into now, it is the Wild Card Weekend show. I'm thinking the way that we can do it is let's just go game by game. And what I wanted to do was kind of talk about who are those players in each of these matchups that have the opportunity that if they do well can really shine, or they have the opportunity to go in the opposite direction. I think it'd be interesting to kind of see from both of our perspectives. This isn't rehearsed. This isn't something that you and I have discussed. So we'll see, where our thought process is on each game. So the first one may be a little biased. I know it's near and dear to your heart, the 1:00 Saturday game. Your Buffalo Bills taking on the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of pressure on this game. I think people have been touting the Bills as one of the top, if not the top AFC teams heading into Wild Card Weekend. A lot of people have them in the Super Bowl. And so there may be that pressure that's building up there. So for me, I think it's a huge game for Josh Allen. Is he going to be able to handle the pressure? Can he come out and do what he needs to do? I think you could start to see a really strong trend if he can get past this first round where his cards will spike really, really quickly and fast and go high up. I also think it's another opportunity for Stephon Diggs to see some increase in his prices. The connection there has just been fantastic. He's clearly found his guy, and I think Diggs has the opportunity to continue his streak that he's had over the last several weeks to kind of put himself out there as the number one guy and be in the conversation of top receivers in the NFL. And then if I flip the coin and I look at the Indianapolis Colts, for me, I think this is an opportunity for Jonathan Taylor to shine. I think what happened last week, if you watched any of his game, they had 250 plus yards on the ground with Jonathan Taylor in the first half. And then the Colts decided to completely abandon the run. And then all of a sudden, weren't utilizing him. So I think he has an opportunity to really make a name for himself. And then last but not least for me is, what can Phillip Rivers do? He's on the tail end of his career. Hall of Fame's in sight. Is he going to go out, in a blaze of glory, or is he going to go down in flames? This is an opportunity to see where maybe his values end up as he moves closer to Hall of Fame and retirement. So that's my thoughts. What do you think about this game, Mike?
Yeah, I'm super nervous. I told you earlier when I called you Vok that my mind is completely distracted to the point where I'm reverting back to old habits. I'm like using all my mental energy on this game. I think you nailed it. Diggs and Allen have the most potential as it relates to cards, along with Jonathan Taylor. And I may even take Diggs out of that picture. If Diggs' cards have not gone up now, they're probably not going to go up unless he has like a 5-touchdown game, goes to the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP, has this like outstanding breakout. But I think he's an awesome guy to collect. But I don't think wide receivers that have been in the league for 3 or 4 years generally go up any more than they're going to. We already know about that. But I think you're right. As expensive or as much as Josh Allen cards have gotten over the last couple of days, there is still tons of growth potential. Just imagine that guy goes to the Super Bowl or even the AFC Championship against Mahomes. There is a 30 to 50% growth rate there. God forbid he wins and goes to the Super Bowl, long shot, but that's a gamble. That's a lottery ticket. If that guy goes and wins Super Bowl MVP, you're talking about a 50 to 70% growth on his cards. Those silvers that are $80, $90 now are $200 now because people want to send them in to get graded. So that is your lottery ticket big play. I think Jonathan Taylor is your quick flip because as a Bills fan, I know our weakness is absolutely our run defense. And if we lose this game, it's not going to be because of Rivers. It's going to be because of what Jonathan Taylor does on the ground, and he's going to make us look foolish. If that happens, God forbid, I won't be seeing you guys for a couple of days. But maybe stack his cards up, get ready. And again, this is a perfect example of it will be too late to buy. So either go to your hobby shop that you can get them in hand for this weekend, or Buy Josh Allen's today. Don't wait until tomorrow and buy them. Get them bought tonight. Get them shipped out tonight, because the more games he wins, the more eBay cancellations you're going to see, the more people who don't ship out, or the more guys who are going to raise their prices. And we know this. We've talked about this on the show before. These guys wait, they either pull their cards or raise their prices ahead of time. We're seeing it with Blowout. 2018 product shot up, not because people are buying it, but because they're anticipating Lamar Jackson win, Baker Mayfield win, or Josh Allen win. They're winning either way, because if somebody buys it this jacked up price, they know exactly it's going to go up. Or two of them win, they're going to sell out. So what I'm saying is get ahead of it. One of these guys are going to win. So in this game specifically, I go Josh Allen for card value. And God, please, Bills, just win one round.
I'm with you, and I agree completely, and that's why I brought up what Sam said here about Michael Pittman Jr. I don't think the secondary is going to be the issue with the Bills' defense. I don't see Pittman having a breakout game necessarily. Your secondary will be able to keep the receivers in check. It would be that ground game, if anything, that causes some problems. So
Can I talk about that real briefly with the Michael Pittman? He's a great example of who to buy in the offseason, because let's say Carson Wentz heads to Indianapolis, like a lot of people are saying. Pittman could be that guy next year. He could be a DK Metcalf. He's not as big. He's not as powerful. I don't mean to say it in talent-wise, but for card-wise, you can buy him for $5 to $10 a card. So if you can get him in the offseason before they sign a good quarterback, then there's a time to buy him. Don't buy him now. Wait until the offseason when the card market dips a little bit.
I'm with you. Well, you said DK Metcalf. We're going to move on to that next game. This is the 4:40 game on Saturday. To me, honestly, and this is no offense to LA fans or Seattle fans, to me, this is the kind of snooze game of the wild card weekend. It's the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. From a card investment perspective, I think this is an opportunity. Not to say that DK has fallen off completely, but he was super hyped up there for several weeks throughout the season, and then kind of flattened a bit as Seattle's defense kind of flattened out flattened out a little bit. Russell Wilson kind of wasn't performing up to the level that he was when he started out, and was kind of the unanimous MVP in the first few weeks. So I look to see if DK can kind of right the ship there. And on the other side of the ball, defense wins championships. You hear it all the time. I think this is an opportunity for Aaron Donald to just prove his dominance on the defensive side. Long-term value isn't necessarily there in defensive players, but still, I think Aaron Donald's one of those that could go down, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive, players of all time at the end of his career. And so this is a chance for him. And then let's see what these rookie running backs for LA can do. So I think there's some opportunity there, but this game doesn't, to me, have a lot of stake from a perspective of, boom or bust from a card value.
Yeah, my thing, I'm exactly with you, because the winner of this is going to play. I don't know what the seeding is. If it's LA, who do they play?
So if we look if Tampa Bay plays, they're going to be Washington's ranked higher than Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay is actually a lower seed than Washington right now. So they would go and play, they would play the loser of that game, Seattle or LA, I believe, unless the Bears upset the Saints.
If the Rams do upset the Seahawks, they end up getting the Packers. They're not going to win a second round.
No.
If they lose to the Seahawks, it looks like the Bucs get Packers. Either way, the winner of this game is probably, it'll be a game with Seattle. If Seattle wins, DK might be a guy to look at. I would say out of all this, DK is the only guy worth looking at. DK is the only guy worth looking at as far as growth potential in cards. And we already saw him go up and then dip down, but he could go up again in the offseason. Say he comes out and has a 2-touchdown, 180-yard game and then goes to the next round. You are going to see a small spike in his cards, I think.
Yeah, and Scott chimes in, it's going to be the Russ and Lockett show. Very well could be. Lockett has been that guy. But to me, Lockett, even if he has a fantastic game, isn't one that you're going to see card values, move the stick too much. DK, being at the beginning of his career, still has a lot to prove. So I think if he has a standout game and can prove to live up to the hype of a playoff game, that's where you see your opportunity for a larger leap. That's why I said him over someone like a Lockett.
Have you watched him though?
Just in any games, he's a freak of nature.
He might be the guy to hold. Say they lose or he doesn't go up. He might be another offseason guy to buy, higher than Pittman, but a huge ceiling there with DK. He could be a guy like Calvin Johnson and not leave the league early, and he could be a freak. He could be the number one guy to watch outside of quarterbacks in the NFL moving forward, even bigger than running backs. So I think DK is a guy also, when we'll get into a show after the Super Bowl is over, is who do we look for going into the offseason. But DK is probably going to be at the top of my list on non-quarterbacks to buy this offseason.
I'm with you. So now we move along. This is the 8:15 game. We've got the number 5 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the number 4 seed Washington Football Team. I would mark this an upset special, only because I think Tampa Bay is ranked 5 versus 4, but I don't see a chance that Washington has it winning this game. Their defense is solid. I just don't think they've got enough firepower to overcome Brady and the weapons that he has, and I think Brady definitely has something to prove. I think in the regular season, he's already proved that it was maybe more him than it was Belichick, being the chess master. So, I mean, Brady's cards are already exorbitant prices. So to say go out and get yourself some Brady would be dumb. But maybe if you can pick up some of the, more obscure Brady rookies that are out there, like the Sage rookies or things like that, grade those might be something to have just to keep, to say that you've got some Brady rookies. There might be an opportunity there. I think we've still got some opportunity with some of the young receivers for Tampa Bay. I think, Mike Evans, seeing how he can do depending upon injury and things with him. Godwin is still another one of those players that I think is going to be a great talent for years to come in the league. And then on the Washington Football Team, I think they are just kind of up in the air. Scary Terry has kind of proven himself to be that guy. So I think he's an investment on maybe a longer term hold for that team. And then Alex Smith, I mean, that would just be an amazing story, right? If he can come out and knock off Tom Brady and the Bucs and move into the next round of the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that there's anybody on either side of the coin here that I think is going to be a potential huge mover one way or the other either.
Yeah, I got to say this too, because I was talking with someone today. You might want to look at not even looking at Brady rookies, but really short print stuff like 25, 50 Brady cards, even if they're this year, 19, 18, whatever, really cool looking stuff that you think you get graded at a high grade. Remember, down the road, we're going to start looking at pop numbers. So all the Brady rookies that get graded, they're going to come back. They're going to look at like there's 40 of them graded a 10 or a 9. But if you get one or two of these really unique Brady cards and it's the only one graded a 10 or a 9, say he wins the Super Bowl this year, or, when he gets inducted to the Hall of Fame, start planning ahead. Brady is a long-term buy now, in my opinion. Short-term, if he wins a Super Bowl, I don't think it's going to happen. It could. I don't think it's like an anomaly if it happens, but start looking off the track for Brady cards, really unique ones, things you might like see really centered off your prism, stuff like that. Because look what happened with Kobe. Look what happened with Michael Jordan down the road. Anything was selling when they did his special, when he got inducted. So I think Brady is still a buy. Look at him as more of a long-term potential, though.
I like it. So that wraps up Saturday. Moving into the Sunday games, of course, this one obviously is near and dear to my heart. The 1:00 game, Baltimore Ravens taking on the number 4 Tennessee Titans. For me, I'm as nervous as you are. This game could probably have no larger repercussions for anybody that's playing in any of these games in my eyes than Lamar Jackson, and that's only because he's 0-2 in the playoffs. He hasn't beaten Tennessee. He hasn't beaten Kansas City. He's going to have to play Tennessee. If they can get by that game and the other games play out the way that they should, most likely he's going to have to go to Kansas City. So it's a redemption tour for him, kind of a revenge tour for him. So can he come out, play the way that they have these last 5 weeks, loose, energetic, having fun? Got a lot to prove. If he can do that, I think you're going to start to see his stuff spike right back up again if he can get past Tennessee. I think J.K. Dobbins was the dark horse of this draft as far as running backs are concerned. I think he is going to be an absolute beast. He actually ended the season with more yards per carry than any other running back in the league, including Derrick Henry, averaged over 6 yards per carry. So I think he's definitely one that you can hold on to. And then on the Tennessee side, from the quarterback position, you're not going to see much there that's going to warrant, going on holding any Tannehill stuff. But Derrick Henry's that guy, potentially has a good case to argue he should be the MVP this year based on what he did, although we know it's going to go to a quarterback, maybe the offensive player of the year if that doesn't go to like a Josh Allen as a secondary to the MVP. So good opportunity to look at some Derrick Henry stuff and grab one to him because he's going to be that guy for, as long as he decides to play.
You want to address the comment?
Baltimore wouldn't make the playoffs a month ago. You know what? Listen, I love my team, but I'm also a realist. So a month ago, if you'd have told me we have to go 5-0 to make the playoffs, I didn't know the way that we were playing that was going to happen. They tightened up on offense. They let them play the game that they're used to playing. We racked up 400 yards on the ground in our last game of the season. So that's the game that we need to play. We don't need to make Lamar have to throw the ball 35, 40 times, even if we get down by a touchdown. You talked about it last week, Mike. That's not the game plan. Just stick to what you know. But I think we've got the playmakers. I think if we get Des Bryant involved a little bit more in the passing game, it's going to open up for Mark Andrews. And I think just keep pounding the ball with Lamar, Gus the Bus, Ingram, and Dobbins, and rotate them out. And then the defense is going to have a lot of starters coming back. So I think with Calais Campbell and Yannick coming back, we're going to be able to hopefully keep Henry down. We did it for the first 3 quarters of the last game, and then just kind of let down. So we just got to play 4 quarters.
Were you surprised the line when it came out that the Ravens were favored?
No, and the only reason is I think I put it when you were breaking there earlier is the way that the Ravens and Tennessee play each other. Tennessee has beaten Baltimore at Baltimore each time they've played, and Baltimore has beaten Tennessee at Tennessee each time they've played. So Baltimore's 4-0 playing at Tennessee, so it wasn't really a surprise to me.
I think what scared me the most for Tennessee was the way they played Texans. They were so vulnerable, and I think Baltimore is playing hot and connecting right now. I do think if I had to pick a winner of that game, no spread, I think Baltimore takes it down.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people with the spread taking Tennessee, thinking it's going to come down to a field goal, and then who do you trust? I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to take Tucker over any other kicker that's out there, and Gostkowski hasn't really done it this year. So, listen, I'm nervous about it. I would not be surprised if Baltimore lost. I also wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore won by 20.
So let me take this stance because I know you're invested in Lamar. So let me take an open investors approach to this. But I think that it's going to take a lot more than this win to make Lamar's take a bump because a lot of people got burned on him. People who bought him after his MVP, they've done nothing but dip since then. So I think that they're holding because they've already had so much invested, or even if they cut their losses, those people are not rebuying. And I think there's been a lot more doubt cast on Lamar. So he had doubt on him initially, and then he proved a lot of haters wrong. And when he skyrocketed, people were like, all right, maybe I was wrong, I'll buy. Or people who were still haters didn't buy, but there were enough people he gained trust on. So whoever he gained, he's lost trust in. People who hated him are laughing at him. And then guys like you who are invested are not going to change your stance. Those people might be like, oh, good, my Lamar collection is going up a little bit. But I think it's going to take him winning a Super Bowl to get his cards back up to that level.
Yeah, I don't think winning a Super Bowl, he might get there. I mean, winning a couple of playoff games, he's not going to reach Mahomes status. Even with a Super Bowl win, I don't think he's going to be that guy. But certainly could be when you're talking from the values of these younger players, a top 5 player, if he can get 1 or 2 playoff wins under his belt. I mean, a Super Bowl this year is going to be just really tough to do. They're most likely, if the things played out, they would have to play and beat Tennessee at Tennessee, Kansas City at Kansas City, and then most likely like Buffalo at Buffalo just to make it to the Super Bowl. That's a daunting task for any team to have to take on. So as a fan, I'm not going to be happy 1 and done. I'd like to see 2 wins, but just to get him that first win under his belt this weekend would be a great start.
Well, here, let this be a lesson to you that, like, not to you, to anybody listening, and maybe it's a Herbert lesson, maybe it's a Josh Allen lesson, I don't know, because those are 2 guys that are trending upwards. But if a card hits Mahomes level like Lamar did last year, because he did hit near Mahomes levels, understand that if you don't sell some, you're probably going to regret that. Like, how much higher when you compare them to Brady and Mahomes now, those are the top tier guys. If your guy reaches there and you're not emotionally attached to it forever, it might be time to evaluate what cards do I want to get rid of, because it's going to take a lot to get back up to that level. Once you get up there, it's a lot harder to get back up than it is to just get there initially. A lot of guys get hype. Herbert got a lot of hype. Hurts got a lot of hype. Now it's going to take a lot more to even Hurts to get up. I think Herbert's kind of like staying level, kind of people are still hoping. I hear a lot of talk. He might be better than Mahomes. Good. Let that climb a little bit higher there. Don't sell yet. Maybe buy in the offseason if you see a slight dip. But, Hurts maybe buy now because he dropped. But what I'm getting at is once they get up to that premier level, if they tumble, if they fall, it's going to take a lot more to get back up. And there are very few people that get to retain that status. And right now, it's just Brady and Mahomes. Even Rodgers, his stuff dipped heavily. And now this year, they're finally climbing back up. But look how many years he was downtrending until he is having an MVP season to get back up there.
Yep, and I'll say this too, which was surprising. I think we talked about it at the tail end of last year. There was a steady decline in Mahomes' prices after he won the Super Bowl. because the buildup was so big for those games, getting him to the Super Bowl, that after he won, it almost had reached that peak where it couldn't get any higher. And then the season ends and you're in the off season, people start, looking at, the beginning of spring training and things like that for baseball. So his cards actually took a dip. So don't buy at the peak. Like don't wait for a team to get in the Super Bowl and win it and then start blowing your load on whatever quarterback that is and buying all of their stuff. Like you got to see it a little bit ahead of time. So if you see something this wild card weekend where there might be that team that you say, you know what, maybe they make a run, maybe they're looking hot or something, do it, but don't buy it at the very peak, like when they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. I mean, a lot of those guys that were smart enough to do that sold off and then reinvested in the Herberts and Tuas and Burrows or whatever early. And the thing about that is that we saw it with LeBron. LeBron won a championship and his cards took a massive dive. Why? There's a lot of speculation. It was social issues or it was the NBA, the way it went, the direction, whatever it may be. But ultimately, it was just exhaustion of LeBron. Like it's the exhaustion of Mahomes. And then there's this sell-off. People who had such a high level of stock. There are guys you have to understand in this hobby. There are guys that hold 10 to 20% of Mahomes graded stock. Like there are guys that literally have caves of graded Mahomes and graded LeBrons. I mean, these guys are investors to the fullest. They make us look like we have our collection is nothing. It's pennies, even if you have a great one. These guys are then unloading to reinvest. They play it like the stock. So you have to see that at the end of a season. And if that happens to Josh Allen or if it happens with Aaron Rodgers and you're not emotionally connected to the collection, which there's nothing wrong with being a hobby purist and only saving those no matter how high they reach. But if you even want to sell some of your doubles, your duplicates, your mid-range card and keep your premier, do it at its peak. Don't wait any longer.
I agree. Let's move along. Don't want to beat a dead horse. I'll talk about my Ravens all day long, but this is actually a really intriguing game. We got the number 7 seed Chicago Bears at New Orleans. This game has a lot of interest for me just because I could see this as an upset special. I think, Chicago has on defense what it could potentially take to knock out the Saints. This is an opportunity for Trubisky. You were high on him for a long time, Mike. So this might be that opportunity for him to show out and, prove that he is viable of being that guy there in Chicago. I think they've got a lot of young talent there as well. You look at David Montgomery. He's one that, has proven himself in the backfield, can be a hold. And then on the other side, this is Drew Brees' last ride in the sunset. Unless he pulls a Brett Favre. He's already said that he's going to be done after this year, so he's all in. And so he's one of those players that I still think you can get him at a pretty good, discount compared to someone like a Brady, who's going to be a bona fide Hall of Famer, who's going to hold records that may never be touched by anybody else. So I definitely think there's an opportunity there. And then Alvin Kamara, of course, is just doing his thing, and he's going to be one of those guys. So, those are players to look out for, both quarterbacks and both running backs on those teams.
Real quick, not to get off topic, but I want to go backwards, answer this question on screen here because it goes back to a game that we've already talked about.
Yeah. Would Tannehill be worth a gamble to buy right now? I mean, it depends on how cheap you're getting him. I just don't see – and it depends on what your goal is. Like, are you expecting Tannehill to, maybe give you a return on your investment of, $50 or $100? Or are you looking for him to be somebody that's considered a top 5 all-time quarterback? So you got to put some perspective around it. Yeah, you could probably get some Tannehill low now that you could probably flip if he wins a game or two for a little bit of return on your investment, but he's definitely not to me like a long-term hold quarterback.
All right, so I'm going to jump over to the other quarterback you just discussed, and that's Drew Brees and Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not putting any more money in Trubisky because I think there's too many unknowns. Drew Brees has a lot of stuff going on with him too. I'm probably taking all that money I would invest in them and put it into Baker Mayfield because I'm almost waiting until he loses to do that, though. I do think he's going to lose. If he wins, you missed your opportunity probably for a little bit, but it will dip in the offseason. But I think he's going to be the next guy that has big growth potential going into next year. He did it all this year without Odell Beckham. They're still going to continue to give Baker weapons, and I'd almost do it even Sam Darnold over Trubisky at this point because I just think too many people are scared of Trubisky. He's shown us he can't do it. And Drew Brees, I think he's going to be another kind of Peyton Manning situation. Peyton Manning might be the second, if not the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, arguably, definitely in the top 3, but his cards just don't hold a ton of value. There's no really understanding why that is. And Drew Brees has stuck to New Orleans forever. But I don't know if it's because there's a lot of cards out there of him. He's too personable. I don't know. But I just think Brees has never caught on as a big buy when you look at like Brady or Mahomes or, you know, those guys. Why do you think that is a guy like Breeze doesn't get that kind of value?
Well, where I think you see the value in a player like him is Breeze and players like Peyton, their autographs are pretty readily available. Tom Brady signs like, 5 cards per product that comes out. So his autographs are limited to begin with. Where I think you see the value in those players, if you go back to like their Chrome rookies, you go back and you get that, Drew Brees in the Chargers uniform, rookie graded at a PSA 10. There's where your value is. Your Peyton Manning, Bowman Chrome rookies, that's where your value is, as opposed to going out and getting the autograph cards, from later years. So I think that's where you have to kind of invest, and you can still get those at a pretty reasonable, clip right here. Chris Taylor had a good question since we're talking about cards and different sets. So he's asking with the way that Jefferson and Herbert broke records this year, would it be worth keeping sealed product? With the way that the market is, and you can answer this better than I am, so I'll just give my quick. I would say the right product, i.e. Select, Prism, Obsidian, those would be worth holding any sealed product from any year at this point.
I mean, I do that too. Like I usually keep a box or two of anything that's a big product from those years. 19's kind of that year that I'm curious about, because I held a little bit from 19, but like, you can like bomb on that a little bit too. Right now, to me, the time to buy or the product to buy is 2019. 19 is the cheapest product between 16, 17, 18, and 20. 19 falls below all those by a lot. And you can buy 19 fairly cheap. Do we really think that 19 is going to be the 2015 draft class? Like, do we think that Kyler Murray and Daniel Jones are Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota? Do we think that none of the guys, like, are they? I'm asking, I'm not being facetious. Like, I'm asking because there is always that class that comes out. If you look at it, 15's that class. Mariota and Jameis Winston were the 1 and 2 picks. They have never come to fruition. They just haven't. Not that they can't yet. We saw Marcus Mariota come in for Derek Carr this year, do a great job. And for a minute, I thought, oh, he's back. He's Tannehill 2.0. But even when it happens, look, Tannehill's cards didn't skyrocket by any means. So, it's just such a game, it really is. So to answer your question, Chris, who knows? Right now, the answer is yes. But the card market can switch overnight. We just don't know.
Yeah, and where I think that brings it kind of into focus is when you look at those players, like there was so much riding on the Daniel Joneses and the Kyler Murrays this year. Daniel Jones just never really got the chance. Now, is that his fault? Is it the team's fault? They didn't surround him with the players that he needed. His line wasn't as strong as it needed to be. Saquon Barkley's injured and out. You need that back to kind of have support. Kyler Murray was on such a hot run and then fizzled out a little bit, didn't make the playoffs. I think if you saw Arizona sneak into the playoffs, then Kyler may be in the conversation a little bit more. But because none of those teams made the playoffs this year, that's certainly going to hurt them. Where you look at somebody like a Herbert, Burrow can't help it. He got hurt. That's not on him. You got somebody like Herbert that was putting up just record numbers and, showing out, was able to kind of build the hype and keep the hype around this 2020 class. And then you've got such a list of receivers, even the receivers from 19, as good as they are, none of them have really come to be that guy unless they're in a weaker team, like a Scary Terry out in the Washington football team, where who's he competing against? Where you've got those guys playing on other teams, none of them have really showed out the way that some of these guys like Jefferson and Minnesota have this year.
Yeah, I see. It says Kyler's the only good QB out of 19. The other QBs kind of flop. Kyler's the only good QB right now. Like Mahomes wasn't big in 18. You could buy a lot of Mahomes cards for like they were fairly cheap. Like, and then he got named the starter. In between the 17 and 18 season, he got named the starter. I should say in 17, the reason people were buying the Chiefs so much wasn't necessarily because of Mahomes as much as it was Kareem Hunt was having a breakout season and Mahomes had potential on his team, but you could still get him fairly cheap. People were buying Nathan Peterman's almost as much as they were buying Patrick Mahomes, oddly enough. Like they were like not the same value, but it wasn't a major discrepancy. What I'm getting at is that don't sleep on like guys like Daniel Jones, who lost his number 1 starting running back this year. We all want to buy Kyler's right now and not even want to buy him because nobody wants it. Now's your time to buy that. So when we do this podcast at this time next year and we're going back and saying, oh my God, why did I not buy more Daniel Jones? Why did I not buy more? I just heard it today when we broke 2018 Select. Oh man, I wish I would have bought more of that when it was $250 a box, $300 a box. Well, you can do that with 2019 product now. We are in what, like, you have to please me right now. Daniel Jones is his second year quarterbacking. He has not even had a chance to grow as a quarterback, but he's not going anywhere. It's not like Dwayne Haskins that they moved on from. And I think Drew Lock might be that other guy too. They're not moving on from Drew Lock in the next year or two. He's going to get 3 or 4 years to prove himself. So do not sleep on those guys. We always want like right now. Give it to me right now.
Well, and even if there is an opportunity where one of them would move on, that doesn't mean their career's over. I think sometimes you just have to find the right spot. If you wanted a dark horse that you can pick up super cheap right now, that wouldn't be, that would be worth holding a few of. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, Silver Prisms, PSA 10s. You can get them dirt cheap right now, relative.
Dirt cheap. Because
He's
all ghost. People think he's a joke. And you know what? The joke's going to be on anyone who doesn't grab a couple of them. Grab a couple of them. You can get them for like $25, $30.
He's got all the talent in the world. Given the right circumstances, I think he could be one of those people. Colton just said same thing for Drew Lock. Exactly. Same thing for Drew Lock. Haskins is trouble off the field. See, that's the thing. You've got to balance the off-field antics with on-field. Is it just the team around them?
Gary Vee talked about this at the National. He goes, he works with players and investing in with these players. And he goes, not enough people look at these players off the field when you talk about investing them in the market. And it was a great point. And I listened, it caught me because I've always thought that same way. If you don't believe in them off the field, don't invest in them on the field. And we're seeing that with teams. Teams pass on better, talented players because there's trouble off the field. A lot, then someone will grab them. But why did someone grab Daniel Jones, number 5? Not because he was the most talented. They liked who he was as a person and as his work ethic. These guys get paid too much money that scout these guys to draft a guy at number 5 and not think he has potential there.
I agree. Look at the 2018, quarterback class. Going into it, the hype was 100% Baker. He hasn't gotten into Johnny Manziel issues, but his arrogance, his cockiness has caught up to him, and he's never really lived up to that performance. Let's just roll into it. The next game is Cleveland Browns at the number 3 Pittsburgh Steelers. Baker is one of those individuals. They're the only team in the NFL right now, I think, that has a negative point differential. They have given up more points than they have scored, which means they're getting blown out by good teams and they're scraping by wins against the teams that they should win against. And it's not because of Baker Mayfield. It's because they've got 2 stud running backs that are able to ground and pound. So when you look at those players from 2018, Lamar had the MVP season. He's a humble, good kid, keeps his head on his shoulders. Josh Allen's the same way. Josh Allen has fun out there. You can see that he enjoys the game, but he's not one of those people that is cocky, that is arrogant, that is showing off outside the field. And even Sam Darnold, to that extent, is that same way. Those are the quarterbacks that you look for long term. If you look at the 2019 class, right, Kyler Murray was one of those people that at the beginning, I think there was a little bit of skepticism about him. Is he going to be that guy? He does come across a little bit arrogant. It's a safer pick to look at somebody like a Daniel Jones who comes from a Duke pedigree that's going to be a little bit more, focused on field. But Kyler was able to keep it together, and that's why you kind of saw his values stay there and shoot up to the top of that quarterback class. Same thing can be said about Herbert this year, right? Burrow's the bad boy. He's that guy. Who knows what Burrow would have done? Do I think Burrow would have outshined what Herbert did this year, even if he was playing? I don't know. Herbert came out of nowhere, and he's a good, humble kid that just does it the right way. So I think there's a lot to be said for how you carry yourself on and off the field that can contribute to what a team does for you and how that equates to your values.
Yeah, and I'll say this about these guys. Remember, go back and imagine what you were at 21 and 22 years old, 23 years old. These guys are coming in, and I get, granted, they're a lot more mature than we are because they've been exposed to a lot more, at least for me when I was 22 years old. But these guys are still kids, and they need some time to grow, and we want them to be adults right away off the field. It just isn't going to happen. And some guys just have innate bad decision making because they haven't been brought up right, or they're, bad seeds, whatever you want to say. They're just athletics over smarts. But guys like Baker, he's starting to learn, and you see it with the way he conducts himself in post-game interviews. He didn't crumble when Odell went out for the year. Matter of fact, he thrived. I think we've seen that with other guys too. When Antonio Brown left, when Odell got removed from the situation, some of these quarterbacks, when Des Bryant got moved from Dak, these quarterbacks get to focus on their game and not so much about pleasing these vet wide receivers who convince them that they need to get them the ball to be popular or to be, good quarterbacks. Baker's doing the same thing now. He's starting to grow into his own. Baker, Sam Darnold, both great buys right now, I think, as far as the card market goes. And we're going to see it differently, even more so next year.
Yep. And if you look at the other side of the coin there, I mean, while I think Pittsburgh probably takes this game, just for the sheer fact of Ben's been there and done that, Baker's going to not have his coordinator there calling plays, that I think that might affect it on some level. There's not a whole lot of up-and-comers on this Pittsburgh team that wow me to go out. And it's not because I'm a Baltimore fan. It's just you look at the potential of guys that are out there. James Conner, hurt, I get it. Not really done anything wow in the backfield. Juju Smith was supposed to come out and be that number one guy. He starts acting like an idiot. That's a complete turnoff. So even if you put up numbers, people are just getting turned off by the antics and they're not into it. There's nobody on that Pittsburgh side that I'm like, I see that I want to go out and invest in right now. TJ Watt, maybe. And again, defense doesn't really.
Minka Fitzpatrick, maybe.
Yeah, that's all defense there. And TJ Watt is that guy. I mean, that guy is an absolute beast. So if anybody ever would value defensive players the way that they do, skill position players, then that would be something, but it just doesn't happen.
Real quick to address Jeremy's comment. That's why I hate redemptions. Could have sold my Haskins at the time for decent money, but waiting for it. There's nothing wrong with selling a redemption before you scratch it. Everyone wants a redemption scratch and get it in. We know it takes a while. If you believe in the player long-term, scratch it and wait for it. If you're not sure, that's where you got to use your judgment. Do you believe in Haskins? Scratch it and wait, because then it's out of your hands, out of your, whatever. You can't do anything about it. But if you're not quite sure, see what you can get for it. Hang on to it. If you see an opportune moment, sell it before you scratch it. You can always scratch it, because here's the thing. When they get the autos, they'll redeem them instantly. Everyone thinks that redemptions take 6 months to get back. Not if they have them. The reason you're waiting so long is because you're getting the product when it's brand new. You're scratching it and you're going to wait until they get the autos. But if you wait 6 months, all of a sudden he has signed in between time and then you decide to scratch it, you'll get it within 2 to 3 weeks. Right. The time doesn't depend on when you scratch it and turn it in. It depends on when they have the actual redemption to sell it to you. So sit on that card a little bit. Decide what you want to do with it. Do you believe in them or don't you? It's okay to do that. Those people who scratch it and try to redeem it instantly, you're getting aggressive. You're being too itchy with it. Don't do that.
Yeah, redemptions, it took me a long time to learn it, but it's not Panini, it's the player. So you're not waiting on Panini, you're waiting on the player, and that's 9 times out of 10. So,
and Panini can change your business model on it, but that's neither here nor there. But it is the player's fault, not Panini's.
Well, and in the interview that I saw with the heads of Panini, they said, "What's our other option? You just don't have those players' autos."
We don't want that. We don't want that.
Then you're not going to get Tom Brady autos. You're not going to get a lot of these players autos and a lot of things, because there's a lot of redemptions out there. So, everything's a catch-22. But so that's a look at wild card weekend. I mean, 6 games. I'm excited. I know you'll probably breathe a sigh of relief around 3:30, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Hopefully.
Maybe. I'm still that's why I'm getting a little lit tonight. If you haven't noticed, I'm having a few because I got my nerves up, man. I've not been like this because, like I said earlier in our break, last year I didn't expect to win. So if we won, it was a bonus. This year, if we lose, it's going to be the biggest depression I've had since March of 2020. So yeah.
Unfairly, I think Buffalo probably has more pressure on them than any team in the playoffs right now because of the expectation.
Yep, the history there too. Yeah, they're expected to win, I think, more than any other team outside of maybe Tampa Bay.
Well, and then again, you got media to blame for that because, listen, rightfully so, they're playing lights out. They've been playing fantastic football lately. But, when the media starts sensationalizing and putting all these teams in as their Super Bowl predictions, then it just builds that pressure even more. So now it's like, all right, everybody says we're going to be in the Super Bowl. If we're not, then anything else is a letdown. Well, I'd almost rather have a team where they're like, I don't know how they made it in, and then win 2 or 3 games.
I'm that way too. I like being the underdog, and you hear it when I talk about the Bills. I've always downplayed us, not intentionally, but because of our history. We've never been that team. I don't like being that team. I always root for underdogs. I want to be the underdog. I don't want to be the favorite because no one likes that team, and also the expectations are too high for that team. Unfortunately, we're that team right now. But I will say to whoever just said we want to see you jump through a table, I already said on the break page, if they win the Super Bowl, I will be going live and jumping through my first table ever as a Bills fan.
That might be worth a flight up there just to see that in person.
Bring the table with you. We can both do one.
Nice. That'll work. So there's our wildcard weekend predictions. Let us know what you guys think. If you guys have players that are under the radar that we didn't mention, if you disagree with us, go on the page, write it, let us know. We'd love to hear the feedback. And again, if anybody wants to ever come on and, try to speak their truths and debate us on any of this stuff, we would love to have you guys come on. So just shoot us a message and let us know.
All right. Well, hey, Chris, thank you so much for getting us live again. Thank you for being patient. And you guys, thanks for letting my son come on and rip this this Japanese Pokemon card. We're getting into it, man. We played the online game this week, and I'm hooked. My brother came over today, and he goes, I showed it to him. He goes, be honest, did you play it without your son yet? And I said, I was tempted last night. So for those of you who have ever opened a Pokemon pack of cards, they give you a free like scan code, and like the whole game online teaches you how to play. It's the if you have kids, do it. Go buy a pack of Pokemon cards in the store and do the online game. It's incredible. It's so much fun. Free.
I know nothing about it. I'm a sucker though. So once Charizard craze hit, I went out and bought Elite Trainer packs until I opened the Charizard. As soon as I hit one Charizard, I was done. I was like, all right, I've done it. It's sitting at PSA right now getting graded.
Well, if you go to our Blazing Breaks page, my father-in-law actually sent me the link I shared from the Pawn Stars highlight episode from the collectibles. And it's funny because the first bid on that was the Charizard where he got offered, like, they didn't even want it. You know, they evaluated his collection at $300,000. He has since sold one of those cards in that collection from that clip for $500K. So good for him for not selling.
Really? Yeah. And he had how many of them sitting in there? Unbelievable. I saw one of those Toolbox Paul brothers from YouTube went and bought one of them for $200,000 at one point. So unbelievable.
It's crazy. All right, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy the games tomorrow. I will be at gymnastics until about the time of the Bills game. You will probably not hear from me until about 5 o'clock for breaks. And then if we lose, I'll see you on Monday because I'll be in a dark, deep black hole of depression.
All right. Well, make sure you stretch before you go out on the mats tomorrow.
Oh, it's not going to be good. I'm anxious, man. All right, guys, enjoy the games.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.